On today's show, Reed Sheppard earns all Summer League first team honors. Plus, Sam Vecenie says that Reed has the highest ceiling of any member of the Houston Rockets young core. How do we feel about that statement? Plus, Alperen Sengun talks his Rockets contract situation and so much more. It's all coming up on today's Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That's the best way that you can help our show out, is to go comment anything below the YouTube video. Just do a drive-by and say, "Go Rockets." It helps us out a ton. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more this summer because FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. That means there's something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you for being an everydayer. We're going to focus on what we are not going to do. Let me just start this off really quick. We are not going to be talking about the Rockets' final Summer League game, the 105-95 loss to the Blazers. The Rockets went out not with a bang, but with a whimper in Summer League. 3 straight losses, and that final game was, almost nothing of consequence, right? It was, no Reed Sheppard, no Donovan Clingan on the other side. Cam Whitmore had been shut down already. And it was, first off, I want to say I commend you if you made it through that whole game. It was some more kind of disappointing play out of AJ Griffin, some frustrating stuff out of Nate Williams. Shout out to Trevor Keels, though, who stepped up and tried to put the Rockets on his back, as well as Jermaine Samuels Jr., Kira Lewis Jr. inserted into the starting lineup instead of Reed Sheppard, who was resting that final game, went 4 of 14. It was a tough watch. In all reality. And that's how Vegas Summer League goes. Those final couple games tend to be a bit of an eyesore unless you're one of the teams that goes all the way to the championship round. But what we will be talking about is Reed Sheppard, some of what we saw out of him, and some of the kind of commentary about Reed Sheppard from other pundits, other talking heads in the NBA landscape, and kind of how we should feel about the optimism with which people are talking about Reed Sheppard's play after a handful of Summer League games. We're also going to revisit in our next episode, more than likely, we'll do kind of what did we learn from Las Vegas Summer League? What did we learn about Reed Sheppard? What did we learn about Cam Whitmore, AJ Griffin, N'Faly Dante, Orlando Robinson, all these guys. We'll tackle that in more than likely our next episode. But for today, we'll stay focused on Reed for a little bit here. And first off, congratulations to Reed Sheppard, who did earn his All-Summer League first team honors alongside Gigi Jackson and Scottie Pippen Jr. from the Memphis Grizzlies, Jordan Miller for the LA Clippers, and then Kel'el Ware of the Miami Heat. The Summer League champion Miami Heat with Kel'el Ware. It's much deserved. I mean, Reed played absolutely out of his mind in the first couple of games, and despite, some bumps and bruises along the way, still had some really solid production in games 3 and 4. And I feel like I might get a bit repetitive when we talk about this, but one of the biggest takeaways, if not the biggest takeaway about Reed for me from Summer League, was that he is going to be able to impact the game in so many different ways. You look at the fact that he did not shoot the ball well from long distance in Summer League, and he was still so incredibly effective. The playmaking is real. The passing, the court vision, the ability to set up his teammates, just his feel for the game, understanding when to push the pace, when to slow things down, how to set guys up, watching, reading, and reacting to the defense accordingly. All of that, right? the shooting in the mid-range is so impressive already, right? That is an incredible counter, right? If he was a one-trick pony and all he could do was knock down threes, then yeah, he'd be pretty one-dimensional and really easy to game plan against, but that's not the case whatsoever, right? He can put the ball on the deck and get to his mid-range shot, and he can do it either coming off screens and curls, you know, or putting the ball on the floor himself and, you know, running a pick and roll and snaking through and getting to that little free throw line extended area and pulling up for a jumper to keep the defense honest. Some of the floater package, you know, and the touch, you know, in and around the basket probably needs a little bit of work. I'm not going to go so far as to say that Reed is a true 3-level scorer yet, but he's a pretty damn elite 2-level scorer from the mid-range and from the perimeter, even though we didn't see the 3-ball really converting it at a good clip in Summer League. Those two areas of his game are absolutely real. And again, that's why there's so many shades of Fred VanVleet. And I do think that Reed, being a little bit bigger than Fred, does have a chance to, you know, kind of refine his game and have a little bit more success in and around the basket. Not saying it'll ever be his bread and butter, but we even saw, you know, there were moments where he was able to absorb some contact, finish, and still get a shot up off the glass and get it, you know, an and one. Moments like that. He's going to have to work on that inside game for sure to really round out his entire offensive package. But that's not, we haven't even been able to talk about the defense yet, right? Like, seeing the way that he was so active defensively, the deflections, the block shots, the steals, the point of attack defense at times when, you know, when he had the backup, when he was guarding kind of in pick and roll coverage, fighting over screens, things like that. The biggest drawback was the individual, like, isolation defense, right? Man to man in isolation. He got blown by a little bit, not even a little bit. He got blown by a lot. And that's going to be something that Ime Udoka and the Rockets coaching staff are going to have to work with him on, understanding his positioning, understanding how to shade defenders, you know, to his help defense, all those little things. But Reed had an impressive summer league, and that should be the main takeaway. So much so that you've got pundits out there who are just blown away by what they saw from Reed Sheppard. We've got this from ESPN's Tim Legler, who said, and I quote, "I got to call a game of his, and I got to really see him up close. He's the real deal, man. They got themselves a player. He is a big-time player, and he's going to be a big-time starting point guard in the league for a long time because he can do it every which way. He can make plays off the dribble for other people. He's got a nice float game, deep range. He shot a ridiculous percentage in college on NBA distance threes, over 50%. He's strong. He's good defensively. Laterally, his footwork, his active hands. This guy has got the whole package. He's quick. He's athletic. He's smart. He's tough. He makes plays with his passing and every kind of shot imaginable on the court. I was very, very impressed with Reed Sheppard, and I think he's going to have a great career." Shout out to Tim Legler, one of the analysts that I respect most in the basketball space. Love that he is on board the Reed hype train, but he's not the only one. We also have the Athletic's Sam Vecenie, who argued that Reed Sheppard actually has the highest ceiling of any member of the Houston Rockets young core. We're going to unpack that and more. We're going to get to Alperen Sengun's comments on his contract situation as well. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices that you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. So everybody hop on board the Reed hype train, because Sam Vecenie, who is one of the most well-respected draft experts in the NBA stratosphere, is arguing that Reed has the highest ceiling of any member of the Houston Rockets young core. So we're going to run this clip back and then kind of unpack it and talk about it.
But I think Reed is their highest ceiling guy if it all goes right now. Like, if everything goes right for Reed, And he is a great mid-range scorer, great three-point shooter that we all know, unbelievable passer playmaker, unbelievable overall defensive playmaker. I think he has the highest ceiling to be that guy in today's NBA. Like, for instance, Great Babe in the YouTube comments brings up a men, just I assume due to the athleticism. I think I'm betting skill in feel over athleticism in today's NBA. I don't know. I'm not sitting here saying that he's going to be this. I'm saying if it all breaks right for Reed, I think he's the highest upside swing that they have right now.
That is some incredibly high praise from one Sam Vecenie, another individual who I have a lot of respect for the work that he does in covering the NBA draft and just covering the NBA at large. And here's my problem is I'm really torn. I don't know if I necessarily agree. I'm very curious your thoughts. I want, especially after hearing the clip, and then we're going to kind of discuss it here in this segment, but I want your thoughts on what Vecenie had to say about Reed Sheppard. Just, drive by the YouTube comments. If you already said go Rockets, then come back, do another comment. Multiple comments doesn't hurt, I promise. But I'm torn because while I agree with all of Sam's sentiments, right, the skill is absolutely there. And I would argue that there is some merit to the argument of banking on skill instead of athleticism in today's NBA. Because look, how many times have we seen teams who talk themselves into drafting a prospect who is, this 99th percentile athlete, bigger, taller, stronger, faster, quicker, whatever than anybody else, right? But they don't have a lick of basketball skill, right? And these teams sometimes convince themselves, man, if we can just teach this kid how to shoot, or if we can just teach him how to dribble, he's going to be a force. He's going to be incredible. He'll be the next whatever, insert Hall of Fame level player with career here. I do think that oftentimes we underrate the skill component of all this, right? Because Reed is kind of the complete polar opposite of that argument, where he's not the tallest or the biggest or the strongest or the fastest or the quickest. He as far as his physicals go, he doesn't stand up to a lot of his competition, right? He's not ever going to be the most physically dominant force at his position. But where he makes up for that with his, physical limitations, if you want to call them that. And again, it feels weird to say he has physical limitations. He's fine. He's quick. He can move. He's not under 6 feet tall. I don't know when 6'2", 6'3" became short by NBA standards, but I digress. Reed's going to be just fine with the physicals. Point being is he's not, some uber crazy 99th percentile athlete, right? He's not a 6'7", 6'8", jumbo-sized hooper, jumbo-sized wing that can do it all at the NBA level. But what he does have is an incredibly polished skill set, a great feel for the game, an incredible shot, right? Great shot mechanics, great understanding of how to impact the game in a variety of different ways. And I fully agree with Sam, that skill set should lead to him having an incredibly productive, lengthy NBA career, barring any significant injuries or anything catastrophic happening, knock on wood. But I don't know if I can wholeheartedly agree with the idea that he has the highest quote unquote ceiling of any of the Rockets players, because part of it depends on what his role truly is at the NBA. I don't think Reed is ever going to be I don't think he's ever going to be like Trae Young. Trae Young is like a poor man's James Harden, right? Incredibly heliocentric player that you have to kind of tailor your entire team around. And we are kind of seeing that has its issues unless you are literally James Harden or like Luka Doncic, right? If you have a heliocentric star that you're building your team around, that star better be the best damn star in that conference or, whatever, because if you have shortcomings, if you're not able to carry that massive offensive burden, that load over the course of 82 games into the playoffs, there are diminishing returns on that style of play. I think we're seeing that play out with Trae Young. It's only really worked for Harden and now Luka, and I guess you can say LeBron James, who also borders on heliocentric star. I don't think he's going to be that. I think his skill set allows him to be a lot more versatile than that, right? Where he's able to play both on and off ball. I think his peak, right, is somewhere around he's going to have a really probably efficient 20 and 10 kind of game where you can easily envision him racking up 20 points, 10 assists with relative ease on a nightly basis. And whether that's playing mostly on ball, whether that's playing, predominantly off ball with another, kind of primary creator, primary initiator for the offense, who knows? That's the beauty of what Reed Sheppard's game provides, is all the lineup flexibility, the roster flexibility with how you want to deploy him. But then you start looking at the other members of the Rockets' young core, and I'll use the example that they used in the comments section on Vecenie's show. Amin Thompson. Amin Thompson has all the God-given natural physical gifts, right? He's 6'7", 6'8", 99th percentile athlete, can jump out of the gym, is bigger, taller, stronger, faster than a lot of his competition. And he's still just a kid, right? Like he hasn't fully grown into his NBA body yet, right? He's only got one season under his belt, and it was an incredibly productive rookie season. But he has a lot of work to do as far as the skills component of things. Right now, I'm not saying that Amin Thompson is unskilled. Not the case whatsoever. Amin has an incredible feel for the game. His passing is there. The court vision is there. The playmaking ability, it's all there. The shooting is going to be his Achilles heel, right? That is going to be the big barrier for Amin Thompson. If he ever realizes his potential as a shooter, if he's ever able to get to a place where he is at least, keep a defense honest, 35% 3-point shooter, and then being able to, get to his downhill game and finishing in and around the rim and developing, ideally a little mid-range game, whether it's a little kind of pull-up game or float game, that kind of thing, then he's going to be a monster. And you can envision a world where Amin Thompson's doing something like 25, 10, and 10 on a nightly basis. And at that point, I think Amin Thompson is clearly probably the better player than Reed Sheppard. So that's why I don't know how to grapple with this, because what this means is we're probably going to have to do a show in the future, just like we did last offseason, where we rank the Rockets young core 7 from 1 through 7 on potential, ceiling, all that mess. And then you have, other guys, right? Look at Alperen Sengun, who's coming off a 25, 25, 9 and 5, or sorry, apologize, not 25, 22, 21. What did he average? Whatever he did, 21, 22 points a game, 9 boards, 5 assists. He's coming off an all-star caliber season, right? A lot's going to have to go right for Reed Sheppard to eclipse even just this last season of play from Alperen Sengun. And Alp still feels like he's only just scratching the surface, right? How much better can he get? We've seen Jalen Green's peak when he plays out of his mind last March. I mean, he plays like he could be one of the best players in the NBA one day when he's playing at the top of his game. So that's where I do struggle with the idea that Reed Sheppard has the highest quote unquote ceiling of any of the other Rockets young core members, because unfortunately, despite how polished he is, despite how skilled he is already out of the gate, and those skills are only going to get better, mind you, right? It's not like he comes in and he's a finished product right now. No, spending time at the NBA level, learning from NBA coaches, just like any other player any other rookie that joins the big leagues and then actually gets to play alongside pros and learn the ins and the outs and little tips and tricks and advice and all this stuff, trial by fire, if you will, whatever. He's going to get so much better than he already is. But that's why I'm struggling with it. That's why I just don't know if I fully agree with Sam's sentiment about Reed having the highest ceiling of the Rockets young core, because just like Sam said in his segment, right? If everything hits right with Reed, if the mid-range shooting hits right, I can make that same argument for if Alperen Sengun develops a 3-ball, holy crap. If Amin Thompson develops an outside shot, right? If that hits, then oh my goodness, what are we talking about here? So that's why I think from that point, from the evaluation perspective, I really struggle with it, because at the end of the day, other guys who have the physical gifts that Reed does not have, if those guys even develop 80% of the skills that Reed has, I think the physical gifts are going to be the thing that eclipses him at the end of the day, because Reed's never going to be able to suddenly hit a growth spurt and become 6'6", 6'7" overnight. He's not going to suddenly be jumping out of the gym. Like, he is what he is from a physicals perspective. He can continue to improve the skills, but even if his shooting, his playmaking, his handling, all that is in the 99th percentile, if you get another athlete who is as physically gifted as an Amin Thompson type, and he's only 80% as skilled as Reed Sheppard, I think the athleticism is what puts that guy over the top. So I'm curious your thoughts. I think this is a very interesting kind of debate, discussion. I want to hear everybody's thoughts in the YouTube comments. But coming up, want to get to Alperen Sengun, who recently did an interview in Turkish discussing his Houston Rockets contract situation. We're going to run that back and share some thoughts here in the final segment. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, I love sports. I love them so much. I never really want them to stop, right? But as you've got playoffs and things winding down and you get fewer and fewer games and the sports maybe just aren't sportsing the way that you want them to. Look, FanDuel lets you keep the sports going whenever you want. All you have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime that you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Right now, you can head on over to FanDuel.com to take a look at the outright betting favorites for NBA's Rookie of the Year next season. And unfortunately, don't know why, it's not Reed Sheppard is the favorite. Zach Edey is the favorite at plus 600. However, Reed Sheppard is right behind him at plus 700. And then Zachary Reed in third place at plus 800. So for all those odds and so much more, head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. And a final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, let's go ahead and dive into this interview segment that Alperen Sengun did in Turkish, mind you. Now, there are English subtitles below, so if you're watching on YouTube, you should be able to read those subtitles. However, I have kind of tuned the audio down a little bit, and I'm just going to be reading along with the subtitles. So I apologize. I will say I did this. I practiced this before hitting the record button, so hopefully it's not a complete train wreck. But here we go. We're going to go and dive straight into Alp's Turkish interview. This is your third year at Houston, and rumors say you might be signing a deal with Houston this year as well. A contract worth close to $250 million is in question. When you say $250 million, it might not mean much to people, but if you look at it, it's actually $250 million. It will be a deal that marks the largest amount of money ever earned by a Turkish athlete in history. And that's just one deal, and more will likely follow in succession. How is the deal going? Are you continuing with it? As far as I know, you don't have the right to leave Houston this year, but you are free next year. Will you sign with Houston this year? What will happen if you can't reach an agreement? Are they giving you that money? Because everyone is saying it will be given. They say Houston can't afford to lose you. What's the situation like? Here's the situation. We are waiting as well. My managers are negotiating with them. Here's the thing. Next year, I'm not a free agent. Being a free agent like that means this year teams can't make offers. But next year teams can make offers. However, those offers can be for a maximum of 4 years. Whereas my current team, Houston, can make a 5-year offer. So let's say next year I get offers for a 4-year deal worth, say, $200 million or $180 million. These will be the prices. This year, they're not obligated to sign with me. But if they don't sign me, these offers will be on the table next year. They will enter into competition with other teams. I can't just say yes. For example, if Chicago makes me an offer, I can't just say, okay, I'll join you. Houston can match the offer. If they offer the same amount, they can say, I'm also offering the same amount. They can say, I will not send Alperen to Chicago. This can happen, but for example, if Chicago offers some money and Houston offers less, then if I want to go, I can go to Chicago. So there will be this risk. But as I said, they don't have to sign. But I want to sign, of course, because when you do, you have peace of mind. You secure your future. And you don't have to worry anymore. You don't have to have the fear of getting injury. And is your injury better? Yes, it's very much better. May God protect you from the evil eye, because recurring injuries are really bad. Whew, okay, I'm a little bit out of breath doing both sides. Honestly, you know what that kind of felt like a little bit with there, because there were a couple points where the interviewer and Alp were kind of talking over each other, and there were like little I was reading the captions for both of them. It kind of felt like when you're singing Fergalicious and you have to do both sides. Anyways, complete sidebar there. So let's unpack what Alpy had to say about this. First, I made the joke on social media when this clip first came out and I watched it and, listened to it. I made the crack that Alpy has a better understanding of cap logistics than 90% of NBA Twitter. And I had a lot of people reply like, where did he talk about cap logistics? RFA, restricted free agency, that clearly has to do with the cap. Now, yes, he's not breaking down like cap holds and like stuff. He's not getting into like the numbers of it, but it has to do with cap logistics, the CBA, like all of that. Like Alpy has a really firm understanding of where he stands and what he stands to gain by potentially signing this offseason versus waiting until next offseason, his availability as a free agent, all this stuff. Like he was sitting there just spelling it all out. And I think some people were like, well, yeah, he's an NBA player. Wouldn't he have a good understanding? I think we'd be shocked at like the number of players who just rely on like their management or their camp, their circle, whatever, to tell them what to do. And they don't actually sit there and like learn what their rights are or what they're capable of doing or, what, they could potentially earn as far as contractual obligations, all that stuff. So I was really impressed with Sengun just kind of breaking down the situation as kind of plainly as he did. I will say it's very evident Sengun wants he just wants to play. And he also just he would love to just get the contract situation figured out. I think it was honestly kind of a masterclass by him and his agent and potentially any PR training that they did going into this interview, because he was able to kind of not so subtly highlight the fact that getting the contract gives you peace of mind. That's one of the big arguments for, why the Rockets should just give Sengun the contract, right? He's clearly the franchise's best player right now. You don't want to upset your franchise player, and you want to give him that peace of mind so he can just go into next season and, ball out, right? And not have to worry about, oh man, if I get hurt and then I'm not going to get paid. And then, all of these different ramifications, right? It's actually, I want to draw an interesting parallel here to that comment specifically, because the rationale surrounding Kevin Porter Jr. when the Rockets were debating whether or not to extend him was very similar. The idea was only at that point, KPJ hadn't earned the extension the way that Alpy absolutely has with his play here in year 3. The idea was make him go out there and play an entire season of consistent basketball, right? No moping, no pouting, whatever. Make him go out there and earn his contract, send him to RFA. And if a team offers him the bag, then that means he had a good year and you'd feel confident in matching whatever offer came his way. But instead, the Rockets opted to give KPJ the contract that they did with all the super crazy baked in contingencies and fail safes and all that stuff. And one of the lines that I believe Rockets general manager Rafael Stone used when talking about the contract situation with KPJ is the peace of mind element, right? To where it's out of it's taken care of and he doesn't have to worry about it anymore, right? He doesn't have to stress about it. So why can that same logic not be applied to Alperen Sengun here in this situation? Again, I've argued both sides of this. I get it. I understand that the Rockets are hoping to have that financial flexibility next summer to make a big move, to do something with their cap space, be it outright signing a major free agent or trading for a major acquisition and just absorbing them into their cap space, or having the cap space to sign, ancillary pieces if what happens this year is Alp hits in a big way and takes another step forward and Jalen Green looks like an all-star and if all the young guys take another massive step forward, then maybe the Rockets don't have to go star hunting and instead they just want to add really strong, capable role players to an already exciting young core. They just want options, right? That's basically the argument from the Rockets side as to why they haven't extended him yet. But you can see that Sengun wants the extension. I feel for him. I really do. And honestly, if I was in Rafael Stone's boots, I'd probably just go ahead and do it because he's the best player that you have on the roster, and just giving him that peace of mind, right? Showing him that good faith gesture of, hey, we believe in you. We are bought in and we want you to be the face of this franchise for years to come. That would mean absolutely everything to a player, right? A guy, and we're seeing it happen across the board with other players in the 2020 and 2021 draft class receiving their maximum extensions. Jalen Green hasn't gotten one yet. Alperen Sengun hasn't gotten one yet. And as things currently stand, it feels like everything that I'm seeing, everything that I'm hearing is that the Rockets have no inclination to revisit the extensions with either of those guys this summer, that they are fully committed to just going into this next year, letting both of those guys hit restricted free agency, and assuming everything goes right this next season, then yeah, they'll have no issue paying one or both of those guys next summer. Now, does that suck for Alp? Does that suck for Jalen Green? Absolutely. Both of those guys, I'm sure, are looking around at their peers, their draft mates, and seeing everybody else secure the bag. And the Rockets, meanwhile, are in this position where they're in a very different stage of their competitive timeline than any of these other teams. And again, to draw the parallel to the Philadelphia 76ers, we just saw the Sixers with the Tyrese Maxey situation make a huge play for Paul George. And now the Sixers are in a much, much better position to compete for a title this upcoming season and for the seasons to come, instead of, had they maxed Tyrese Maxey last offseason, then things would have looked a lot worse for them, right? They would not have been able to add Paul George. They would have been stuck with just Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and role players. And that's still a really good team, but that's not a favorite to make it out of the Eastern Conference, or a team that's going to be able to deal with the juggernaut that is the Boston Celtics. So I get it. I understand what the Rockets are trying to complete here. But at the same time, Sengun is just a guy. He's in the gym. He's constantly working out, refining and working on his game. And he just wants to hoop at the end of the day. He just wants to hoop. He wants to win at the highest level. I'm sure he wants to bring a title to Houston, and I'm sure he would love to play his entire career as a Houston Rocket. He loves this city. He's loved the way that the fans have embraced him. And again, I don't think this should be a referendum on how the Rockets view Sengun, because again, there are salary cap ramifications for why we haven't seen the extension happen and why we likely won't see the extension happen this offseason. So with that, just felt like revisiting that, sharing the sentiment here. I'm curious your thoughts on the Sengun contract situation. Let us know in the YouTube comments. But that's going to do it for today's episode. Be sure to tune in for our next one where we tackle what we learned from Houston Rockets Summer League about guys like Reed Sheppard, Cam Whitmore, AJ Griffin, N'Faly Dante, Orlando Robinson, to name a few. We're going to unpack all that on our next episode. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, Odyssey app. Leave us a 5-star review, subscribe on YouTube. I have completely butchered my outro, but thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening, and we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. We found our way back at the end.